It's been a month since Derek Chauvin was found guilty on all three counts for the murder of George Floyd. The vast majority of Americans agree with that outcome, but there's still a lot of debate when it comes to practical reform and how to achieve lasting change.
Here to talk about the future of policing and the criminal justice system, we want to welcome in now Ralph Godbee, former chief of police for the city of Detroit, and Debbie Hines, a trial lawyer and former Maryland Assistant Attorney General. Welcome to you both for this conversation. Chief Godbee, I want to start with you because you've previously said that police agencies need to be defunded and built from scratch. Is that really a viable solution? And if it was, what would that really look like?
Well, I would look at it this way. When Leonardo da Vinci did renderings of a helicopter and airplane, it didn't seem possible then, but now we cannot imagine a world without flying. To do the same thing the same way and expect a different result is the definition of insanity. And we fundamentally have to look at, number one, the foundation of policing in America, which ostensibly comes from slave patrols, which control Black and brown behavior through fear, violence, and intimidation. Some may think it's not practical, but I think you have to set the bar extremely high, considering we were just excited a year ago, or not a year ago, but just excited recently to find out that Derek Chauvin was convicted for committing murder on tape. That's an extremely low bar. And if we continue to go at that pace, it will not be in my lifetime. It won't be in my daughter's lifetime, nor will it be in my grandchild's lifetime to see substantive change as to how Black and brown individuals are treated by law enforcement in the United States.
Debbie, how rare is it to see a police officer charged with murder?
Well, that's a very interesting question because the statistics show that from approximately 2005 to 2019, that there were roughly 104 police officers, non-federal police officers, that were charged with either murder or manslaughter. And out of that number, there are only 4 that were convicted of murder or manslaughter. So that shows you how rare it really is. And in some of the cases that we did see that went to trial, some of the more well-known cases, the case for the murder of Philando Castile and Walter Scott, those police officers were not convicted. Ultimately, Walter Scott did, the police officer for killing Walter Scott, Michael Slager, he did plead guilty, but his original trial ended up in a hung jury. So it's just an extremely rare thing to happen. An interesting note, in New York State, when we talk about, maybe local police prosecutors should not be prosecuting the police, in New York State, Governor Cuomo 5 years ago passed or signed an executive order that said that, we're taking all of the police killings out of the hands of the local prosecutor's offices, and we're putting it with the New York Attorney General's office. And to answer your question even further, that was 5 years ago. There still have been no convictions.
So, Chief Godbee, I would love to just have some of your thoughts based on what Debbie was just saying. The extreme rarity of police officers really to be convicted or face any kind of consequences or accountability for encounters with the public that result in fatality. So clearly there's a problem here. Once these things get into the legal sphere, once they hit a trial, but on the streets, what reforms need to be done so that there aren't so many police officers that are having these kinds of fatal interactions with the public and overwhelmingly Black men?
Well, one thing we have to look at is the number of pretextual stops that officers are involved in. And the reality is, if you go through any vehicle code in any state in the United States, it is so voluminous, realistically, an officer can justify stopping anyone. The problem with that is that it is not informed, it is not done equally in different communities. So in affluent communities, I would venture to say, what happened with Dante Wright being stopped for a hanging air freshener on his rearview mirror for obstructed vision, that would not occur in a more affluent community. However, officers have so much unfettered discretion. And somehow we have to wrestle that discretion away because we, number one, as an industry, we have not earned the opportunity to be given the benefit of the doubt as to our word, because we see too many times that the narrative, as a matter of fact, if you look in Louisiana at Ronald Green, and you look at the circumstances surrounding that, the narrative that was given to the family was he died in a car accident. The reality is he was beaten to death by police officers. So we have to wrestle back all of that unfettered discretion and really put a much more strict standard on what officers are allowed to utilize relative to pretext for stops.